This is the story of a queen who tried to cheat death, but was forgotten anyway. Cleopatra was born in 69 BC during the reign of Rome's triumvir Mark Antony, whom her father helped take control of Egypt. After her father's death, Cleopatra took the throne alongside her younger sister and co-regent, sharing power with her sibling for a whole 12 years before the other sister lovers forced her out of the country. Cleopatra would go on to marry twice, first to her brother, then to the general who had helped him seize the throne. She had children with both men, becoming one of the most powerful women of her time. And yet, despite all this, history remembers little of her. So here is the story of the Egyptian queen who ruled alongside her lover, built monumental tombs, and was forgotten anyway. Born in the city of Alexandria, Cleopatra was just 14 years old when she became queen. But unlike many young rulers, she did not need a regent to govern in her stead while she waited to come of age. Because even though she was young, she was also smart, beautiful, and ambitious, a combination that made her surprisingly effective at statecraft. And so from the moment she took the throne, she set about proving that she was worthy of the title of pharaoh. With her older sister beside her as co-regent, Cleopatra spent the early years of her rule consolidating her power base, pushing back against Roman interference, and focusing on trade and building projects. However, after just 12 years, her sister, her lover, and her brother came together to force her into exile. Banished from Egypt, Cleopatra fled to Syria, where she lived for 4 years in relative obscurity. When Caesar invaded Egypt in 48 BC, it looked like Cleopatra's chance at reclaiming the throne, and she wasted no time in making her feelings known. The future queen had a reputation for theatricality, and few stories capture this better than her first meeting with Caesar. According to Plutarch, she rolled up a carpet to reveal herself hiding underneath and immediately won his admiration. Of course, there were other contenders for the throne, but Cleopatra was the only one who could call herself a true Egyptian. And so, when Caesar left for Rome, he left Cleopatra in charge. Now, reunited with her sister, the two queens worked to rebuild their kingdom in the aftermath of civil war. They commissioned building projects, renovated temples, and re-established Alexandria as a center of trade. While they also rebuilt their personal lives, Cleopatra found love again and had a son with Caesar. However, after Caesar's assassination, things changed. His heir, Octavian, soon took control of Egypt and the eastern Mediterranean, setting his sights on Cleopatra. Though she pleaded her innocence in Caesar's murder, Octavian was having none of it. And so Cleopatra spent the next 3 years trying to escape his grasp. When Octavian finally arrived in Alexandria, he besieged the city, trapping Cleopatra inside. But instead of giving up, Cleopatra plotted to smuggle herself out. And it almost worked. She hid inside a chest bound for Rome, and only revealed herself once she reached Octavian's ship. Of course, this did not go as planned either, and she was brought back to Alexandria to face charges of conspiracy. Perhaps fearing execution, perhaps hoping for reconciliation, Cleopatra and her lover surrendered, giving up their kingdom and their fortune in exchange for safe passage to Rome. In the end, it didn't work. On the way, Octavian confiscated their property, and Cleopatra's lover Mark Antony was accused of planning an invasion. Now determined to get revenge, Cleopatra attempted to flee to India, but ships, storms, and disease killed most of her company, and the rest ended up imprisoned. It seems unlikely that she ever intended to rule Egypt again. Instead, she was focused on revenge, assembling a new fleet, raising armies, and gathering allies. As she began her campaign to reclaim her throne, her lover grew impatient and assembled his own force. Soon the two lovers were fighting side by side, winning battle after battle and slowly taking back lost territory. And just like that, Cleopatra and her lover were back in the palace, ruling side by side once more. After securing their northern borders, Cleopatra and her lover embarked on a building project, constructing great temples and monuments across Egypt. None were more impressive than those built in her honor, including a 1,000-year calendar that celebrated her victory at Actium. In fact, everywhere the couple went, they commissioned massive tombs, building not only for themselves but for their children as well. This must have seemed like a very wise decision, because how could anyone hope to live longer than the mighty pyramids? But it turned out that neither Cleopatra nor her lover would make it to the afterlife. When Octavian invaded Egypt, Cleopatra barely had time to pack her bags, let alone collect her treasures. Instead, she entrusted them to her servant Agathide and fled with her lover. But she may have been able to cheat death if she hadn't trusted her handmaid. You see, according to Plutarch, Agathide stole from her mistress and kept it for herself, enjoying unimaginable riches in the afterlife thanks to Cleopatra's carelessness. However, it wasn't all Agatha's fault. After all, it wasn't uncommon for ancient Egyptians to bury their possessions with their dead, believing that they would need them in the afterlife. And since Cleopatra was planning to resurrect herself, she certainly believed in the afterlife. Unfortunately for her, Octavian had different plans. He plundered the royal palaces, seizing Cleopatra's valuables and destroying any trace of her that he could find. And as far as her monuments were concerned, he didn't bother tearing them down. After all, what would be the point? History wouldn't remember Cleopatra if it weren't for him. In fact, it was Octavian who erased Cleopatra from her own tomb. Her magnificent funerary temple still stands today, but there is no trace of her within. Even the temple built to celebrate her victory at Actium no longer mentions her name. Everywhere that Octavian seized Egyptian territory, he replaced the old regime with loyal puppets, erasing any mention of Cleopatra and her lover from the historical record. And while that's all he wanted, the internet remembers. In a spectacular turn of events, we find ourselves transported back to the golden age of Alexandria. Gone are the days of the pasty white skin and dark wigs favored by previous generations of artists. In their place, we see the rich diversity of humankind, the colors of the earth. The land of ancient Egypt comes alive with its deep red sands and towering white monuments. Our eyes feast on scenes of everyday life, hawkers calling out to customers, couples strolling hand in hand through the bustling marketplace, priests carrying offerings to the gods, children playing and laughing among the ruins of fallen empires. All the while, the smell of incense and myrrh fills the air, mingling with the savory aroma of roasting meat and freshly baked bread. The sound of hammering fills the streets as artisans craft intricate jewelry and weapons. Musicians strum their harps and lutes, filling the air with haunting melodies. And then there is she, the star of the show, the queen, resplendent in her golden headdress and flowing linen gown. Her presence commands respect, her beauty takes your breath away. And as you gaze into her deep brown eyes, you can't help but wonder what secrets they hold. Who is she? Where is she going? What will she do next? The possibilities are endless. But one thing is certain. You won't want to look away. Now it's your turn. Tell me, what do you think of our queen? Does she remind you of any old master paintings? And what kind of adventures do you imagine her going on? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we can keep the memory of the Queen alive, ensuring that her story is told for generations to come.